Let's talk call-in radio.
This is KWMR Point Radio Station.
You can't read it.
Recently had eye
Let's
surgery.
Talk,
Aha!
getting to the root causes of the important issues of the day. This on-the-air community forum believes that your voice matters and welcomes all thoughts and views without judgment. Please join the conversation by calling 415-663-8492 or tweet us at Let's Talk on KWMR.
Forget the tweet.
No tweets.
I have no tweet box.
Could you bring down the energy level a bit, Steve? So what are we talking about this week?
We are talking about your idea, Stephen. What is your idea?
We're putting you in the boardroom today.
And B-R-E-D?
The B-O-A-R-D with Charles.
Sorry, go ahead.
But I want to say you look really good today, Charles.
Oh, well, thank you.
Got this little thing. Very preppy, actually.
Yes. Well, you know.
We're putting you in the boardroom today, and we're creating a dilemma. Do you take the donation or don't you? The donation happens to come from someone who's been very nasty, someone who's been getting their money through ill deeds. For example, the Koch Brothers.
Oh, in your opinion.
In my opinion, those are the guys we'd love to hate.
Yeah.
They are supporters of the arts.
They are.
And the question is, if they donated to the art program, let's say KWMR, would we accept the donation? Should we?
Interesting question. We'd have to ask the board of directors, I think, now to say if anyone would like to call in on this subject. 415-663-8492.
Nonprofits, where they get their money from.
We're talking about nonprofit funding and the dilemma, the moral dilemma that could possibly be involved. And I'd like to start out with an email that I received from Mark Dowie, the great Mark Dowie. He said, having started, run, and served on the boards of both foundations and nonprofits, I've grappled with these questions for a lot of my life and taken a lot of excrement from politically and environmentally correct friends and associates. My ethic is simple. If you trace its source and generation back far enough, all money has blood on it. It should then be the purpose and intent of non-profit recipients of that money, blood money, to clean and green it. And the starting point of that process should be to never accept money from anyone with strings attached, and that should be made clear to all erstwhile donors. There you go.
Well, the money is the string, right? And that's the problem. You don't get the money without a string.
Well, I think we should talk about something else then. He seems to have...
He solved it? Well, no,
it's a dilemma.
Well, he's paraphrasing Balzac, right? Behind every fortune is a great crime, usually an unknown one. And that's true. But there's so many... Environmental philanthropy, now talk about an oxymoron. I mean, this is not the love of man. Usually it's environmental misanthropy, right? These are people who really care about human beings too much, but, just as happy for them not to exist, for there to be fewer of them. But I think it's a problem. I love the Hobbes line, and this is not the English he wrote in, so this is just my update of Hobbes's quote, which is, charity exists to ease the burden of compassion on the rich man. So
I think that's very apt, don't you? I mean, it's a way that they can feel that they are doing good by supporting
And throwing a coin into the gutter, yes.
art
Urchin.
institutions.
Don't spend it on drink.
Well, exactly. I mean, it could be taken that way, or it could be the spreading of the magnanimity of spreading wealth across the board.
But what if they actually approve? What if they want to support? You make it sound like there's an ulterior motive to every donation. What if somebody just believes in the arts and wants to give money to the arts?
Well, yeah,
There was a
so
great-
David Koch, for example.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, there's a great example of this. Ruth Lilly, the woman supposedly for whom Prozac was invented, associated, as you can tell by that last name, with the Eli Lilly Corporation. She got really dotty in her final years and decided first to give $100, then I think $200 million to the Poetry Foundation. Poetry Foundation, which it was famous for its, publishing back in the 20s, published The Wasteland, things like that, it was basically had been moldered for decades.
I think I remember that.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden she, for whatever reason, decided to make it all of a sudden the best funded poetry organization in the world, and I think that was pretty. I don't think she had an ulterior motive for that. But again, she was an odd cat. Just passed away. She was in her 90s. Died a few years ago. But that was true. But, I mean, the Kochs, they put their name on Lincoln Center. I mean, Zuckerberg and all these clowns, they want to put their names on hospitals. They also distort public policy with their donations. I mean, famously,
Yes.
Bill and Melinda Gates said, we are going to get into education. Zuckerberg wanted to get education, too, in New Jersey, famously. And so what did the Gates Foundation want to do? Well, they wanted to have small schools in Oakland, and they put all this money into it, and they broke up all the schools, and they had smaller schools, and then the Gates Foundation got bored with the idea, so they pulled the funding after a few years, and what did the city of Oakland have to do? Smash all the schools back together. So the idea of letting billionaires set your public policy in that way, it sort of looks good. You say, oh, they're going to give us money, but I'm not so sure about that. And getting back to the source of the fortune, this is actually acquaintance of Paul Raffaele. He could tell this story, the Earth Art guy. If you feel like telling that story.
Right. Yes, an heir to part of the Weyerhaeuser family fortunes.
Lumber.
Basically gave it up and became an environmental activist, gave most of the money away and did Earth Art stickers and, created all kinds of things. But the first community garden on wasteland under the freeway in Oakland, he started the urban gardening thing over there, neighborhood gardens. Huge activist up in Oregon against the logging industry. Yeah, and so... you could say, well, he's from a family that was involved in the rape of public lands for profit for his forebears. Should we accept money and good deeds from him? Yes, of course, because he wasn't part of it really, and was certainly morally opposed to it all.
No, I think it comes with a burden. I mean, it's part of the baggage. People want the money, but they don't want the baggage. And I think that's why we live in such an ahistorical culture, is because nobody wants to know where the money came from. They want the money, they just don't want to know. And I think it's unfortunate. I'm not saying people shouldn't accept their inheritances. I think they should just accept them with the baggage, that's associated with them. And like this fellow, bear that in mind.
Basically, give it away and, keep a little for yourself so life has come for you.
Well,
and,
that example,
but
that's really not what I had in mind. If you say you're on the board of directors of Lincoln Center, your reputation stands behind who you are and the decisions you make. And you don't get this money just, oh, gee, guess who called up and wants to give us $50 million? You cultivate these relationships. So it's not like saying yes to a donation. It's a question of, do you want to, meet them at the parties, travel with them, keep in contact with them. Ultimately, you have to earn that money. And so the question is, how do you feel about those activities, knowing not only what you're getting, but how you're getting it?
Well, I mean, there's a basic confusion here, is that there be some essential moral quality to art. It's just not there. So we assume that those people, the liberal elites that are running these institutions, they're pretty amoral people. They don't care where the money comes from. But then there was never a moral dimension to opera. There was never, to the symphony. It can be beautiful. It can be exciting. It can be entertaining and diverting. But the idea that it is virtuous in some way, I don't think was ever the case.
You're right. I was making a huge...
They'll take money from anyone. Idi Amin wants to give money.
Somehow I thought they were good.
Give us a call,
Thank you for-
415-663-8492. Whether you agree or disagree, we will listen to all points of view. Is there a moral dilemma involved in accepting money as a non-profit? For example, would Mo and So accept money from the Monsanto Foundation? I'm guessing not. Would EAC?
Oh, boy.
Monsanto,
What an assertion.
I think that's a no-brainer around
You
here.
know, the funny Pacific.
I don't know.
What is it? Pacific Environment. It's one of
And
these-
if you're on the board of EAC, please give us a call. 415-663-8492. An organization, the Environmental Action Committee of West Marin, that has actually never come out against pesticides. So they have never made a stand on pesticides.
You know, I was thinking
To my
about
knowledge, anyway.
other aspects. Does dying somehow clean up the money?
What do you mean? If you die, if you die and want to leave the money to me, I will honor
Well, no,
your
you
memory.
create this
Call in.
foundation. You're
No, I mean, you go back to the two
well-
first foundations at the beginning of the 20th century, Carnegie and Rockefeller. What were the purpose of those two things? To shield this massive robber baron
taxes.
fortunes from taxes.
taxes,
And so they are they have an obligation in law to donate money. It says, oh, the great philanthropists are helping. No, they have to do that so that they can keep
but
these
they have
these
a
assets
choice
intact.
as to where the money goes.
Oh, sure, and and the problem is that they end up controlling the arts and the culture because they're the people making the handouts now, which they're legally obligated to make. It's not that they're virtuous.
Well, so we're back to the strings again. So how one of my questions was, how has this private donation industry affected the arts?
Well, I
are
was
there
just
strings
wondering-
attached, and you know what the commercialization of art, because it's all about getting funding for whatever organization you're involved
The
in?
interesting thing is just what doesn't get funded, more than what does get
Right.
funded. And so I think the thing is what don't we have in our cultural life, not what do we have. And that's the way. It's not with the string attached. It's just who gets money and who doesn't. And frankly, I see artists, intellectuals, whatever, they can't get arrested in the United States. They can go to South America, right? And people
And be arrested.
and be arrested. But so you get what you've done by putting stupid rich people in control of the cultural life of this country for a long time is it becomes more and it degrades. And the things that do get funded, the things that do get produced, it's get stupider and stupider. So and lots of great artists and great ideas cannot get money to make their projects, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
And yet, when we talk here, he is hopeful.
I'm always hopeful. Yeah.
Charles is an optimist.
That's
believe
right.
it or not.
I know.
And we have a caller.
Surprised.
Hi, caller. You are on the air. Give us your name, turn down your radio, and please keep the language clean. Thank you.
It's Amanda,
Hey.
and I would like to argue with Charles. I think he should probably not just refer to people in general as a classification as stupid.
Stupid rich people.
His own opinion, clearly.
We don't have any nonprofit donors at KWMR, so or we don't get donations.
Well, we just talked about having a gift acceptance policy because at our last board meeting, because there was a question about whether or not we would not accept funds from individuals based on their, I don't know, whatever, political affiliations or things like that. And I have received about 7 different examples of gift acceptance policies, some from other radio stations and some from other nonprofits, and we will be drafting such a document. And really the document wasn't so that we would have to sit and argue about who we would not accept money from, but that it's more of like we're an open platform, people can come to the radio and say what they need to say, but also really sort of it's not about what we wouldn't accept, it's really about what we would accept, because that would be just a discriminatory action on our part if somebody wanted to give us funding, an individual or a family, say, not a company or a corporation, that somebody on the board had a beef with, would we not accept that money? And so the gift acceptance policy was really to be more open and accepting of gifts, knowing that people are getting nothing in exchange for those gifts other than a tax letter that they can take to their tax preparer and they can do with it what is, doable under the tax law. We don't tell them what they can do with that.
Well, that's interesting. So
Has the station ever turned down a donation?
Not to my knowledge.
No. But I'm not
But
even.
there have been discussions about whether or not we would want to have certain underwriters
Oh,
and basically what we have stuck with is really try to be local with our underwriters, and if we bring in an underwriter that's from outside of the area, they're providing a service of some kind that isn't easily provided locally, or is provided is in addition to things that are done locally, but we clearly understand that they have customers that are from our listening area. So we have, a lot of organizations give this thought. To be honest with you, I haven't looked and read through all of these gift acceptance policies that we're looking at as models, but I think that it's important to have something like that in place just because you want to be open and fair with whomever you're receiving funds from.
Yeah.
Whether Charles agrees with them or not, or thinks they're stupid.
I'm not saying you shouldn't take these people's money because, I mean, there are not a whole lot of clean hands out there, I guess, as Mark Dow was saying. In West Marin, we have a Rothschild in Inverness Park. We got a Rockefeller in Stinson Beach. A ConocoPhillips heiress owns the Ridge in Marshall. We got a United Fruit heiress in Bodega. We've got, what else? We've got Gamble's. We've got, just about every industrial fortune. Well, Henry Clay Frick's family built the Episcopal Church. Just about every industrial fortune in the last 150 years has a representative here in West Marin. We've got, Boise Cascade. We've got all kinds of...
Boy, you've made a study of this.
Yeah, well, my neighbors.
But my feeling about funding, and I know where you're going with this, overall as a topic, is really, though, it's the small gifts. It's the ongoing, sustaining people who are in the calendar club or are... call up every single pledge drive, renew every single year. It's those about, 600 people out of our entire population that really keep us going.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's important in terms of thinking about philanthropy, is that it comes in all shapes and sizes. Mm-hmm. And every penny is important to every single nonprofit that receives it. And so just because you don't have an immense amount of wealth doesn't mean that you shouldn't support at a small level the organizations that mean a lot to you.
Very good.
I think the question we're asking, though, is do we remain neutral in terms of the money, or do we differentiate? Do we make specific judgments? And if we do, how bad does it have to be? If we say we will take the money, well, I'm asking how bad does it have to be before we'll say no? And if you have a sliding scale, then what they used to say, do you want to go to bed with me? And I got to be careful here. And
no.
And he says, she says no, and he says, "Will you do it for $100?" No. Will you do it for $1,000? Well, he says, now we're just talking about price. You are a prostitute. We're just talking about price.
Yeah. Well, I have a neighbor who's acquainted with Larry Ellison, and said anybody Larry donates to, he sleeps with. Men, women, whatever. You want money from Larry Ellison? Get ready. So what a lovely man, Larry Ellison.
Well, I would say that once we visit this gift acceptance policy, then we determine what the board wants to craft and put out for KWMR that it might be worth revisiting, and also to perhaps people from other nonprofits that already have established gift acceptance policies, would weigh in.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful. What a great coincidence that you should be doing this at the time that we're actually doing this show. The confluence here.
The problem for institutions like KWMR is that they're founded with an intention, and then it's hard to hold on to that. And the intention was David Mitchell. Donate to the station, David. Call us right now. David Mitchell didn't want to cover Donna Sheehan's push to end the spraying of pesticides or herbicides in the county. Isn't that right? Is this close to the truth, Paul Rafel?
Well, the very original part of it was that Donna felt she wasn't getting the coverage she needed.
I'm surprised the television network wasn't founded. But there was an idea. I want to get this message out here. There's no way to get the message out. We're going to start a radio station.
Start a radio station.
That's close. And then, what is it, 10, how many years?
Oh, that was 94.
I'm going to open up the phone line.
Yeah, thank you, Amanda. That was really valuable information.
Join us more often.
Yeah, thank you, Amanda.
I call all the time, you guys.
Yeah, you do.
Call again with a different voice.
With a different voice and a different name.
Will do.
663-8492. 663-8492. What do you think about nonprofit funding? Now, there's a writer, Yasmin Nair, who I was going to try and get on my radio show, which, by the way, tomorrow will be William K. Black discussing his book, The Best Way to Rob a Bank is to Own One. That's tomorrow at 1 p.m. Oh, gracious.
I remember him from another show.
Yeah.
Yes, caller, you're on the air. What's your name, please?
Oh, hello. Hi.
Hi there. Carol?
Yes, hi. It's a great show.
Oh,
thank you.
You're bringing up a lot of points, even, that I hadn't really thought of. It's a lot more complicated, I think, than it looks on the surface. When I talked about this a little earlier with Stephen, another distinction seemed to be the people who do philanthropy in a sense to kind of whitewash their image, like having someone like Exxon or Chevron, have commercials about the work that they're doing to save the environment.
Mm-hmm.
PBS is terrible. PBS is terrible with that. They take money. I mean, the classic example, they keep taking money from Chevron. They produced a documentary about how BP was really negligent in the Deepwater Horizon thing. And at the end of the documentary, it says, this program is sponsored by Chevron. You think, oh, okay, I get it. And then Chevron's utterly shameless. They used to run this on PBS. It's a black sub-Saharan African man standing in front of his Jeep in the savannah saying, Chevron helped the people of my village. And you're just like, whoa, really? Really? Utterly shameless. And of course, PBS says, gimme, gimme, gimme. Ira Glass is on record and saying, well, this privatized funding model really works. Well, maybe it works for Ira Glass, but, it is really creepy to me. Yeah. Sorry, Gail, please.
Then again, you're on the spectrum of what you can condone. I tend to agree. In other words, even someone as distasteful as the Koch brothers, they may truly love the arts. People are diverse. They're not really one-dimensional. And, and so to me it seems at least somewhat more acceptable to say, okay, and they're patrons of the arts, or people who build hospital wings. I mean, those are really significant contributions, and really there are plenty of people with a lot of money who don't contribute at all. So it's a way of having the money in circulation, and it's also a way of, in other words, seeing that the things that they care from, like someone who had a family member who became very sick and now threw a lot of money into the research for that particular illness. Anyway,
do you say no to that?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, do you say
Can
no
you?
to that?
Well, again, I'd say getting back to like the Koch brothers and their sponsorship of the arts in New York City in particular, or, I ran into a guy who works for the Walton family, and that ridiculous Walton woman has built Crystal Bridges, this multi-billion-dollar arts complex in Arkansas, and it's just amoral. I mean, beauty is just beauty. It does not imply virtue. It does not contain virtue. It just is what it is. And many of us have an immediate response to it. And many of us really love things that are beautiful, beautiful music, beautiful pictures, beautiful sculpture, the beauty of nature, etc. There's no moral there. There's no ethics. It's just is what it is. I mean, a sunset is not telling you something about what's right or what's wrong.
Yeah, but you can't fund a sunset.
You can't. They'll try.
You take their money. In other words, you say, we don't want the money for this particular function, the arts in this case, because the way that you get your money is immoral or against our beliefs. I mean, look, there are funds where you can really divest yourself of arms, of weaponry, of nuclear power, things like that. So obviously there are people who make decisions about how bad is bad, or how bad is unacceptable.
Right. Well, as Amanda was just pointing out, that they're actually looking right now, they're going through some of the acceptance procedures, limits, guidelines from other nonprofits, which is great, I think.
Yeah.
Well, there's a certain homogenization that's going on, too. Wallace Shawn, we'll try and get Wallace Shawn on the radio.
Oh, well, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, he's fun. And anyone born in the 80s like me, you'll just have to guess why you know that voice. Anyway, he talks about he's very involved.
It can happen, by the way.
In theater, and he's very much involved in theater in New York City, has been, all of his adult life, really. And he said all the boards are getting really homogenous, and they're all seeking to raise money from the same sets of people.
Sure.
And so I think it's never that you have somebody who's running a nonprofit that says, I want my nonprofit to be co-opted or narrowed by the sources of funding. It's just, I think that there's a kind of process of figuring out how you raise money that does cause that narrowing to happen. Who's supporting weird stuff? Who's supporting unusual? I I mean, I don't see it. And the weirdness you
Right.
do get is this really decadent, like Jeff Koons, kind of thing, which is for 10 people in Los Angeles to go see or something like that. I mean, I don't.
You know what? I'm going to let you guys get somebody else on the phone, but I think that idea of the homogenization of the boards is really actually a pretty important one that is under the radar for a lot of people. So thanks for bringing it up.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Gail.
you, Gail.
I'd like to just talk a little bit about that again. It seems that when you look at corporate boards, it's the same people on all the boards. They just sort of, hey, I'll be on your board, you be on my board. So the same people are making the same decisions in the arts as well.
Sure. Well, I mean, the SF MoMA just had a party a couple of weeks ago, for the elect. You and I were not invited, Stephen. And look at the crowd. I mean,
Pui Folger, was she there?
I don't know. Silicon Valley gazillionaires. George Schultz. They wheel him. They get him out of the casket and wheel him in. Yeah, right. At 912. Let's get George in. And just look at the design of the new SF MoMA. Right. The observation deck. The top of that new building is not for the public. It's a fundraising space, and as most been criticized for this, that the Fisher family basically gives you money, and then they get to put their private collection on display, which does what? Increases the value of their private collection, and it's a weird money thing.
But they're not into it for increasing the value of their collection. That's not.
They don't need the money.
That's not why they collected those.
But
they're not going to sell that stuff.
I wonder. Maybe their kids will. I think this is a shift that took place in the 60s. You want a great documentary about it, watch Robert Hughes' last documentary. It's called The Mona Lisa Curse. And he's just talking about the shift in the art world from the 60s on, in particular with characters like Tom Krenz and Thomas Hoving at the Met, and the way that they really sought corporate funding, corporate sponsorship, and the way that they shifted the whole idea of a public institution or that has some kind of public service as its core to a brand. Tom Krenz will say the Louvre is a brand, the Guggenheim is a brand, the Met is a brand, and then the final shift is that the individual becomes a brand.
Yeah, and what kind of art would they accept if they're going to fund it? Andy Warhol, making money is art, and working is art, and good business is the best art.
Yeah, that's a great one.
This is KWMR 90.5 Point Reyes Station, 89.9 Bolinas, and 92.3 San Geronimo Valley, and of course on KWMR.org. KWMR is supported by Point Reyes Vacation Rentals, a local family-run and community-minded vacation rental business with over 25 years of experience in lodging and hospitality management. Point Reyes Vacation Rentals rents and manages homes throughout West Marin. More information at 415-663-6113 or online at pointreyesvacationrentals.com. Station House Cafe, serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner in downtown Point Reyes Station since 1974. The Station House Cafe is a proud supporter of KWMR and all things local, offering live music, garden dining, cocktails, and more. Information and reservations available at 415-663-1515 or online at stationhousecafe.com. And KWMR also supported by To Celebrate Life Breast Cancer Foundation, raising funds to help underserved women and men living with breast cancer. Through its Bay Area Breast Cancer Grants Program, the foundation supports nonprofits that provide direct and emergency services and believes that no one should face breast cancer alone. Information about how to get involved is available at toCelebratelife.org. Give us a call, 415-663-8492. Give us your thoughts on what are the guidelines that you would expect from nonprofits and arts.
Well, Charles made me think about something else, talking about the wealth that's inhabiting here in our area. Do you accept money? Let's say you're inheriting. Where your father was a crypto-Nazi like Henry Ford. Do you
crypto now? I mean, their Sturmer
he was
used
a Nazi.
his newspapers as source material. The Nazis
he was a Nazi.
He supplied vehicles to the.
Well, no.
Exactly.
Hitler had a picture of Henry Ford on his desk. By the way, Ellie Ford, one of the scions of the Ford family, lives in San Francisco. Ellie, if you're out there, call me. It's Charles.
415-663.
So, do you accept your father's money? You're an inheritor. Do you?
Oh yeah. Well,
isn't that a decision similar to what we're talking about?
Well, I mean, I think this is why we live in an a deliberately amnesiac society, which that sounds like a contradiction. I'm saying that people know what they don't want to know. And what they don't want to know is where we come from. It's our history. It's all of that bad stuff that happened in the last 200 years that we're all associated with. And so I'm not saying that you have to, give away all your money and wear a hair shirt, but I just ask for a little consciousness about where it comes from, meaning that if you have taken this fortune, out of the earth, off the backs of other human beings, and this outrageous exploitation and destruction, I think it does come with a responsibility. I think it does come with you got to fix it now. If you want the money, fix it. You don't want the money, fine.
Well, you're really mostly talking about inheritors, though.
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Sure. I mean, and it's
Blood
better for
diamond
them.
Money.
Yeah, it's better. It's better. They'll be happier. But I'm just saying, if you want the money but you don't want the responsibility, this is where all of the New Age kind of stuff comes in. And I talked to Billy Talon about this, Reverend Billy, who used to live out here, and he was saying, est, James and Penny, call in, est. Was really helpful, what they call landmark education or forum or whatever it's called now. He had said this woman in his choir, poor black single mother in Brooklyn, abusive husband, had to get away from this abusive situation and really start her own life again. And it was really very difficult. And Est's message that you can be free of your past and then you can construct yourself as you want to be rather than what you've inherited. For somebody who's experienced extreme trauma like that, I think maybe it is possible that's helpful and that's sort of therapeutic. The problem with all of this Est stuff was when rich white people got a hold of it, because those people know they don't need to be separated from their past. They need to re-embed themselves in their past. So what it meant was, I got this huge fortune, my family, they're all monsters, but I can be free. I can get the money and not have to worry about this. And so I think that's problematic. I think that people of backgrounds of wealth and privilege need to lift up the rock and have a look what's underneath, and kind of deal with that. It's okay, actually. You'll live a richer, happier life.
But aren't there lizards under everybody's rock?
Oh, sure. Oh, no, sure, absolutely. I'm just saying, that idea of the break with the past, for people from in certain kind of, I think, extreme situations, maybe that's really helpful. But for rich white people, I think it produces people that want power without accountability. They want to be rich, but they don't want to have any responsibilities to anybody else. And they're offended by the idea of being responsible, too, I think. So I think that's negative. But, I mean, not everybody's that way. Amanda was saying I was being a big meanie for calling them stupid. They are stupid. It's okay.
No.
If they're smart, they're evil. It's actually worse if they're smart.
There are stupid poor people, too.
Yeah, there are. Lots of them.
There's a resentment here.
Oh, sure. Well, that's right. It is.
So part of this was when I was reading, as you came up with this idea for this subject. And one of the first things I found was in The Atlantic back in 2015 about the death of the artist, the birth of the creative entrepreneur, and how since World War II, art has become so institutionalized. The museums and opera houses, ballet companies, all was a huge culture boom, and they all depend on this private funding or foundational funding. Arts councils, educational programs, an entire bureaucratic apparatus. As art was institutionalized, so inevitably was the artist. The genius became the professional. Now you didn't go off to Paris and hole up in a garret to produce your masterpiece and wait for the world to catch up with you. Like a doctor or lawyer, you went to graduate school. MFA programs were also proliferating, tried to find a position. This often meant a job, typically at a college or university, but it sometimes simply meant an affiliation, as with an orchestra or theater troupe. So the training is professional. The careerist art. Yeah.
It's unfortunate, and it causes homogenization, and because certain things get funded, and so people observe this. How do I get my stuff funded? So there's this thing where you get a repetition based on, I know this kind of thing can get funded, so that's what I'm going to propose, and it traps the artist in a market dynamic. If you want to live, you want to pay rent, you want to survive, well, you better produce something that people want to buy. And so that idea of art as being non-commercial or even anti-commercial has really been bred out of of the arts and out of the culture. You have to produce something that's going to sell, which means you have to reproduce something that's sold in the past. And so I don't see my generation defining its own aesthetic. I see them digging up things that sold before, dusting them off, and selling them back to who's got the money? Their parents.
And it's obvious that people do, the artists, visual artists, painters do series. Because if one sells, then you can make a series of 20 and you'll sell 20.
Well, there's a great
break here.
There's a great line. There's a great line about.
What, are they all supposed to be living in a garret there?
Well,
scrounging for the next meal.
This is it used to be that you studied under a master, and someone took you on as an apprentice. Or you were an artisan. You had inspiration. You had creativity and inspiration, and you wanted to do it. No, it's like a job. Why shouldn't I? My point is, I'm absolutely in agreement that artists should make money because
they deserve
their
creation
money
of the industry
as much as Bill Gates deserves to make money.
Okay, but here's an interesting point. A British artist said recently, Turner couldn't have won the Turner Prize, and the point he was trying to make is that only people with he says it's a whole machine in which you have to make loads of canvases. Talk to Russell Chatham about this, and you can look it up on Point Reyes Light website, in which they want artists that immediately after you win the Turner Prize, you've got dozens, if not hundreds, of canvases that can immediately go into galleries all over the world. It's a huge sort of money-making machine.
Yep.
And those, for him, he'd never been able to survive that way. The one he really hates is Gottlieb, and, who could make 10 paintings in a week, and immediately recognizable, the Gottlieb brand. You walk into their place.
Warhol and Koons and all the others who have their factories.
Do not give Jeffrey Koons a tough time.
Oh, he is.
I like him.
We have a caller.
Okay.
Hi, caller. You're on the air. What's your name?
It's
please?
Jeff Koons.
It's Gail. Yeah.
Gail again.
Hello, Gail.
Hello, Gail. Yeah. Well, so just going back to this notion that somehow artists were free to create, there's no doubt that there are places where artists are given stipends to live for a year and encouraged to create in a much more open environment. But read The Agony and the Ecstasy. There has never been a time in the arts when there are so many when artists did not have to be supported and submit
That's a really
to the
good
will
point.
of their sponsors.
Used to be the church, the Catholic Church.
That's right.
Whoever it was, they had patrons. Somebody had an opinion about it. Somebody supported them. And look at how many artists died penniless, because they were busy pursuing their crafts but couldn't get
We're ahead of their time.
sponsorship or couldn't earn a living. Look at even...
Yeah, Monet starved, right? He got rich at the end of his life. Sorry, Gail, go on.
Well, I just mean in the Impressionists, they had to go in and create a whole different salon. The reason there's a different movement is because they couldn't get any of their work shown in the traditional vehicles in Paris at the time.
I think it's right, but I'd say it's not trans-historical. When people say it's always been such and such a way, no, not true. You take the period from, say, 1955 to 1965, which is really where a lot of what we think of as sort of interesting post-war American culture comes from, not the Summer of Love. It was a time in New York City, if you hear somebody like Murray Bookchin talk about it, wwhere you could go to the Fulton Street Fish Market at 3 a.m. and get free fish. They had so much fish. And you could get 2-day-old bread, and you could get free fruits and vegetables, and rent was $20 a month. And, you could get a big place and only one person would have to have a job. Actually, you talk to people who were in San Francisco in the 70s, they'll tell you the same thing. One person had a job. And
now the dumpsters are padlocked, and it's against the law to dumpster dive.
That's right. And to have that same house that was $20 in San Francisco in 1960 is now $4,500, $6,500 a month. So if you want art, you need good art. If you want honesty, if you want new ideas, you need cheap rent. And so
Iowa.
Yes, we'll have to go to Iowa.
Look at the crisis in Oakland right now. If you want to look at the artist's dilemma, the whole community that's grown there is being pushed out because they can't really afford the rent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, so it's a thing that we've made it so expensive just to have a kind of basic survival that the idea that people are going to have what I think is so essential for art, which is the leisure of your creativity, just doing things that you want to do because you want to do them, not for a paycheck, not for your career,
credit card,
or to advance your career. The careerist kind of thing is just really a nightmare. Well, you got to have cheap rent for that. So it's a problem. I think a lot of of people in West Marin want to be artists, or have great talents that they don't get to express because they've got to work. I know in Marshall is a painter. He'd love to be painting, but he's got to work a lot and doesn't have that time to really dedicate to it. So I think we're in an interesting cultural moment. But I think that you got to be able to live cheaply in order to have your own mind about things. I see people who they are repeating a company line all day every day.
So what if, for example, we'll stay with the Koch brothers just because they are the epitome of
They're so nice.
We see as evil or whatever, or different.
Hardly.
They think differently. What if they had a program where they set up housing for artists for 6 months? Whatever deals.
They may.
They
probably do fun stuff like that. I think, it's just that
would you take that,
Well,
That's the question of the day.
I've got an acquaintance that's trying to get into the Headland Center for the Art to do a residency there. And it'll probably work out for them. But what you see when you look at these places and their residencies and things like that is they keep on selecting for a certain set of characteristics, and so it just narrows what's
You're
actually
right. That's
happening.
true.
They don't. I mean, Nietzsche wrote a lot about this. Wrote a lot about a lot of things, which is that the need for eccentricity, for the new to come in and break up the old. Because what we've done is we've gotten to a certain level of perfection and certain kind of institutional forms in the West, the museum, the MFA programs, all of this stuff, and it's gotten sclerotic. It's turning to stone, and it's really killing the thing that it's supposed to be fostering, and it's great irony. So we need, some new blood and all that, but I don't see how it's going to happen.
The industry needs new blood. If they don't have it, they're going to go out and find it and create it.
Well, here's another real dark story, which is that Madison Avenue basically has taken over the arts. That when Andy Warhol says good art is the best business, or good business is the best art, forgive me, there has been a combining, a real melding of advertising and what we call art. And I don't know how you escape
Andy
it.
Warhol. That you brought his
but
name
you like
up
Jeff
twice.
Koons. So how can you like Jeff Koons and not like Andy Warhol? Because Andy Warhol is essentially his father, or grandfather, if you prefer.
He was his mentor. Gail,
Because see Jeff Koons as being spitting in people's eyes. That's why.
That's right. That's what the poor need today, to be spat at by Jeff Koons.
Yeah. I'm talking about in the industry's eyes.
I don't think he's.
I think
he's the richest artist alive.
Exactly.
Well, so who is he offending?
Well, this is a different view that you have of Jeff Koons. That's interesting.
He's one of the most celebrated artists in the world today, and one of the richest, if not the richest.
And you think he's? I mean, I think he's intentionally making schlock art, and you think it's actually spitting in the eye of the people who are paying him.
He's making toys, and he's looking at people and saying, "Look, your art is. We can make toys, and you can call it art."
We have another caller.
Ah,
Gail, are you still there? Gail's gone. Okay. Caller, you're on the air. What's your name, please?
Oh. Where are they?
Caller, you're on the air. What's your name, please?
Oh, it's Amanda again.
Yeah,
Gail can call back. I can call back, right?
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, of course.
So here's what I looked a little bit more into this, and really, in terms of accepting gifts, you would want to make sure that whatever you accepted as a nonprofit organization, there weren't so many limits on it that it became a huge burden for you to administer the use of those funds.
Well, if you had a free hand to do it, I don't care who donates to KWMR. If the Gaddafi family wants to make a donation, fine. It depends on what are you going to do with that money.
Well, that's the answer to the whole show.
That's my question. What if you're an arms trader? How low do they have to go before we say no?
Well, the biggest arms trader in the world, of course, be the United States. We're not going to take
money from the United States, and we hope to continue to get that money. So if you have a problem with that,
I don't.
Okay.
The thing is,
but here's the deal: the other parts of it are like, okay, because marijuana is not legal on the federal level, but at the state levels it is, and we operate as a nonprofit under an FCC license, that could put us in jeopardy if we did an underwriting thing or, accepted a bunch of money that was, we named, Studio A, the cannabis studio or something.
That's what I've always called it.
Yes.
Those are the types of things, or if somebody wanted to leave us real property that was going to create such a huge burden for us to manage without them assuming the costs of, repairs or other things like that. Or if they said, like, we had a donor who left a vehicle to KWMR in a will, okay? And the executor of the will was very intent on wanting us to have this vehicle and drive it around. And I said, well, we really do not. We're not going to drive the car.
I'll take it.
No, but the resources. We love the fact that this individual wanted the station to have this as a car, or as something. And the thing is, we do accept vehicle donations, but those, we don't ever take possession of the vehicle. We don't have a little lot of cars here.
Yeah.
They go straight through a processing, and then we receive a check, and the person receives the tax letter. And so ultimately we worked it out that would be the case, and thankfully the people who handle the car donation business were, it was a higher value vehicle than a lot of junkers that just are sitting around causing people problems on their property that they donate, and all you need is a title. But we were able to sell it in a private auction versus going to, or in a private sale versus going to auction, because it's a better deal. So there are things like that, but I can see issues with, say, an individual gift. If it was given to the station with the intent that we switch our programming around, we would have to say, we're not going to do that. If you want to give us an unrestricted gift, then we would take it. But if your gift is coming with all these, saying that we can't have Let's Talk anymore, we would probably have to say no.
Well, really? Well, that's so kind of you.
However, if you said you just throw Charles Schultz off the air on Fridays, yes, we'd be willing to do that.
We'll just take your money.
Yeah, exactly. we were going to do it anyway, but we'll take the money too.
Don't blame it on them.
We have
Okay, thanks, guys.
Oh, quickly, but there's a more subtle problem here, which is that you can look at that book of underwriters and you can find people in there that have opposed interests, and so it becomes.
Hallelujah! That's the whole point.
Well, but you remember how difficult it was to get money from Drake's Bay and the EAC during the middle of that scandal? It was very difficult. I think it put a strain on, people who worked at the radio station who were trying to walk that line.
But we did, and I feel that was our responsibility. And, if a donor decides they don't want to, an organization decides they don't want to underwrite based on the programming, that's their call, and that, in fact, did happen as a result of this program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a prediction. You're going to answer the phone. It's going to be Ingrid Noyes.
There is another caller on the air. Yes. So, thank you, Amanda. All good points.
Hello, caller.
Hello, caller. You're on the air. What's your name, please?
My name is Ingrid.
I knew it. You owe me a Coke, Hurwitz. I get a bet.
A Coke, thank you.
Oh, that's right.
That was a product placement right there.
Exactly. What do you got to say there, Ingrid?
I tuned in late, so I don't know what's all been discussed so far. But I'll come down when I'm done. Okay. Sorry. Somebody knocked on my door the same time you answered my call. So I just have a word of advice to people who are fundraising. As somebody who gets multiple appeals for things all the time, I'm especially since, for people who are on tight budgets, I think for me, fundraising appeals always go over better if I'm offered something in return, no matter how small. So, for example, the premiums on KWMR, I go for, I'll take a bandana every time. I don't care. I just want something. You know what I mean? And But even more successful than that, when I've done fundraisers, I've tried to think of things that people are going to buy anyway, and just try to get them to buy them from us. Like I did one time, fundraiser with some local coffee product, saying, at an event that we were producing, and saying, buy a pound of coffee and support the organization, and the person who donated the coffee could afford to do that, or I buy it at cost from her. And then we make money, and they get coffee, which they needed anyway. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
it's a two-way street. But what if the coffee company said, I don't want you teaching violin or something at your music camp? Why would they do that? But,
yeah, really.
And you find a different coffee company.
So you would draw the line if there were strings attached, so to speak.
Our gift store.
Like the strings.
Route 1,
well, back to the violin.
The gift store plays a major role in money for Gal Route 1.
Gift store?
Yes, true.
Yeah, we have a gift shop.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Come by sometime.
I know you've got to be 73 before they let
Come
you
to my opening. No, show on Saturday. It's opening. Come over. It's a members only opening.
Well, I'm not a member.
But the opening.
Pay to play.
Come over
Arts
for
of West Marin.
come for the meal.
Oh,
stay for the art.
That. I definitely do. Yes, I am a member. I'll have the I'll have the salmon, I think. Yeah. Well,
anyway, Ingrid, yes.
Free food.
So for example, there's an event I go to every year that's put on by a nonprofit, and when they get up at the mic and just ask people to give money or give a gig, that's one of their favorite things. Give a gig, go play a gig and give us some money. I'm like, no way. But they do this thing called glad rags, where everybody brings their old clothes they don't want anymore, and you buy them off the rack, and that money goes to the organization. I love that. It's fun. It's fun, and I get a new shirt.
These are fundraisers that you're talking about.
Fundraisers, yeah, fun. I'm all about fun. I mean, especially, yeah. So anyway, that's just my advice to organizations that are trying to raise money is make it fun and make it work for people even that are on tight budgets. Offer them something that they need anyway,
Good advice.
Some kind of premium or gift or something.
Yeah.
Isn't that what a major donor does need? That recognition, their name on the wall, a brick on the floor?
A lot of them do, yes. A lot of them want to have
recognition. Some people actually don't want recognition.
Yeah, right.
But they, and some people don't want anything. Not everybody's like me.
I was on a philanthropy site. Oh, are you heading out? No.
Oh, Ingrid?
Yeah?
Oh, you're still there.
You're
Good.
still there.
No, I was looking at a philanthropy site. It's for promoting philanthropy, and it's kind of the philanthropy club online. And there are many, many multi-million-dollar donors who don't want any recognition at all, historically. But there are a lot of them who just absolutely anonymous. Right?
Well, there's a big problem. A guy wrote an op-ed for the New York Times, I don't know, 10 years ago now. It's Warren Buffett's son, who has, of course, a foundation of his own. And he referred to this philanthropy stuff, this donation stuff, as conscience laundering. That doesn't mean he gave all his money away. But it was an interesting perspective he had. So he's looking at, how do I have this billion-dollar foundation and make it not be horrible? And so, I mean, I've seen some of the stuff that they fund, this local kind of thing and whatever. Yeah. I don't know if they're going to be able to solve that problem, but very interesting and ironic that he was aware of that problem.
Well, I think...
I'm going to get off the air so someone else can call.
Thank you very much, Ingrid. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
And as we were saying earlier, when in classical period of art, it was all the church. They were the ones who...
And they had a requirement.
It had to be religious.
That's right.
Well,
everyone had to look good, and the angels had to be blonde, curly-haired.
Yes and no. I mean, there's because of the control of the patron, you got a lot of subversion in the art, and a lot of really creative ways of being subversive and even mocking the patron. And it's not as though Michelangelo's sculpture,
like the Goya's portraits of Spanish noble family.
Yeah. But also Michelangelo, his sculpture didn't suffer from having to you pick classical and ecclesiastical subjects. He made his statement.
He was forced to do the ecclesiastical.
Well, you say forced, but I mean you'd have to cast yourself back to the year 1500, and the the church is ubiquitous.
What else was there?
He didn't want to paint the Sistine Chapel. They made
Charlton Heston didn't want to.
My cold dead hands.
That's true. I'm basing this on the movie.
A little drama.
Sorry.
Michelangelo said, "See."
What's
worse? My information from the cellulose.
What's worse, Heston as Michelangelo or Kirk Douglas as Van Gogh? Call in. What is more horrendous? I have to paint.
Paint. So I just want to start a whole new discussion at 3 minutes to the hour that this institutionalization there was just one line in that Atlantic, and I can't find it, but it was that with modern art, the way art is now, nobody has the nerve to tell an artist that something is bad, even if they think it's bad, because nobody's supposed to understand
Well, right. It's an
what's
absence
going on.
of judgment. Yeah.
And they also made the point that everyone's an artist now. Everyone's a writer. Everyone's an artist because we all have access to all these tools that artists have longed for centuries. And
well, it is endemic in a place like West Marin, where criticism is considered hostile, aggressive, mean, destructive, maybe injurious to one's mental health. And so
you do it.
Well, of course, I'm the only one doing it. But I put it this way. This is Mencken. I'm stealing from Mencken's line about journalism, but I think it holds true for me for the arts, which is it exists to comfort the afflicted or afflict the comfortable. I don't understand all of these cultural expressions, so-called in West Marin, that exist apparently just to comfort the comfortable. I think it's really boring and unfortunate. And again, my generation is not defining its own aesthetic. It's not rebelling. It's not doing its own thing. It's simply repeating the past for a
You are
marketplace.
so wrong.
We gotta go.
That's a whole...
That's a whole nother show.
Gallery Route 1.
We gotta go.
Stephen and I will be fighting.
Thank you. This was Let's Talk Call-In Radio. Thanks to all our listeners and our callers today. I hope you'll tune in every Thursday at 11. Your voice matters. KWMR does not take a stand on any of the issues discussed on Let's Talk. Opinions expressed on this program are those of the hosts and callers and don't necessarily reflect the views of KWMR, its board of directors, underwriters, or members, or its multi-million-dollar donors. Where are they? Damn them.
Give us the chance to decide.
Here we go. We'll be back next week. Oh, I won't be here, but there will be some people here next week with another interesting topic. So tune in, won't you, every Thursday at 11 for Let's Talk Call-In Radio. Bye for now.